Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to another episode of a game of throws in World of Warships. If you're wondering why there are only 7 ships per side in this particular battle, it's because it's a clan battle. 7 ships per side, domination mode, here on the Shatter match. And this, in HMAS Vampire 2, is Vanji 35. If you're thinking, hold on, that looks an awful lot like HMS Daring, yeah, well done. That's basically what this is, with some upsides and some downsides. The downside being that the Vampire only gets 1 torpedo launcher compared to the Daring's 2, and it doesn't get a repair party consumable. However, it does have higher main battery damage output, the torpedoes have a longer range, better concealment, and instead of the traditional British destroyer sort of self-defense, short duration, short range but very very fast recharging hydro, the Daring has a traditional long duration 5 km hydro and a crawling smoke generator. In a nutshell, the Vampire is a ship that is very very good at capitalising on other people making mistakes, but it's also very vulnerable to the consequences of any mistakes that you make yourself, because it doesn't have that short duration burst smoke generator that the Daring gets, which is often available to cover any mistakes that you might have made, and it also doesn't have the heal that the Daring does. So try not to make any mistakes when you're playing the Vampire, and you will find it to be an extremely potent ship. If you do make mistakes, however, it doesn't have the get out of jail free cards that the Daring does. So, Tier 10 clan battle, Shatter map, domination mode. It would be wise to be cautious at the start of this battle because the enemy team do have 2 radars, although at the same time it's also a good idea if you can grab some early caps for the team. But the enemy team do have 2 radars. And with all of these tightly packed islands here in the centre of the Shatter map, there could be absolutely anything lurking around the next corner, although he knows that there's somebody flipping the central cap over there at Bravo. Actually, there's somebody flipping the cap at Alpha as well, although his team have managed to claim Charlie, so it's not a complete disaster right at the start of the game. The downside about not knowing what's around the side of these islands is, well, it's fairly obvious. You don't want to run into something that can shave half of your health off before you can leap into cover back around one of these islands, and of course with no repair party, that could prove to be extremely costly. But there is a lot of island cover here, so even if he does get radared, there is cover available. So maybe getting radared early on isn't going to be the end of the world as long as he takes advantage of the cover. So, enemy Marceau spotted. Somebody's been shooting at him. And he's now contesting this cap here at Alpha. So, in effect, this now means that both teams have a single cap circle. Even though the enemy team actually have this one, since he's in the cap circle, they're not getting any points from it. And right now, that's good enough for Vanji. Because with the Marceau spotted and not running away, it's likely that he knows something that Vanji doesn't. And there it is, the Condor. That's going to be really, really bad news for the other friendly destroyer, because the Marceau is not backing down from the fight. Yeah, that's most of the enemy team. Explains why the Marceau wasn't keen to run away and hide. The friendly Marceau, on the other hand, should probably run away and hide, because the only thing he's liable to get any kind of support from is the friendly Annapolis. And I mean, the Annapolis isn't nothing. It's a very, very good ship, but there's only 1 of them. And with a Condor, a Satsuma, and a Des Moines over there, the friendly Marceau is not the only one that should be trying to go undetected and getting the hell out of there. I'm not even sure he can. It looks like he's in radar range. Oh dear. It's not great news for the friendly Annapolis either, because as Admiral Akbar was famous for saying at the Battle of Endor, our cruisers cannot repel firepower of that magnitude. The friendly Marceau is continuing to fight it out. I mean, he may be caught in a radar trap. There are 2 radars over there, so it may be that he just doesn't have any choice. But Vanji certainly doesn't want any of that. The good news, though, is that the enemy Marceau has been forced out of the cap circle, so as long as Vanji can stay away from anything that runs the risk of spotting him, he might actually be able to take this cap back. Although whether he can hold on to it or not is a different matter. Okay, he has done it. The team now have 2 cap circles. And surprisingly, Looks like the enemy team may actually be coming off worse here. The Des Moines been focused down fairly heavily. It looks like the Marceaus managed to get out of radar range. Oh, and somebody on the enemy clan there is saying in chat, one of our buddies got forcibly disconnected. So, you know, not accidentally disconnected, like Mum coming into the room and saying, turn that bloody game off and get your homework done, kind of disconnected. Probably isn't going to be coming back. Well, that's bad news for the enemy clan. Bad news for Vanjie, however, is, well, he's radared, although at the moment it doesn't look like anybody actually has line of fire to him, so that's not good news, but it's not terrible. But somebody was back in this cap circle. Okay. That's probably going to be that pesky Marceau. Alright, good news. Whoever it was that was contesting the cap is no longer contesting the cap, and Vanjie is no longer radared, but it looked like the Marceau was maybe trying to sneak around the rear here. Vanjie positioning himself, just in case. He ends up having to defend himself against the Marceau. Nobody dead yet. It's kind of surprising, especially considering how the enemy Des Moines was actually getting focused pretty heavily. There's the Satsuma. Not an immediate threat, more of a threat to a cruiser than a destroyer. There's the Condor, still practically on full health. And that is definitely a threat to a destroyer. Oh, bit of a lag spike there, sorry about that. Alright, the friendly Brisbane has gone down, finished off by the enemy Jacksonville. So first blood to the enemy team. What's the friendly Marceau doing? Oh, he's directly challenging the enemy Marceau. Right, Vanjie definitely needs to help him out here. Because that's not a fight I would voluntarily have picked. Not with all of the support that the enemy Marceau has around here. And he's gone down. But can Vanjie finish the enemy Marceau off? And no, it doesn't look like he... Oh, maybe he can. The enemy Marceau returned fire. Oof. Okay. Probably not the result that Vanjie was hoping for. He didn't get the Marceau, and he lost almost all of his health not getting the Marceau. The only thing that saved him there was the friendly main nuking down the Des Moines that had him radared inside his crawling smoke. But despite the near instant reactions from the main, Vanjie still lost 2/3 of his health in that brief exchange, thanks to being focused down by all of those enemy cruisers and that enemy destroyer. So probably not the outcome he was hoping for. Although I do have to say, great reactions from the enemy clan. I mean, Vanjie was not spotted for long, and they absolutely mauled him. Again, it's a bit of a good news, bad news situation, because while Vanjie's team are down a kill, they are at least up a cap circle, and cap circles matter. It's now very unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely, that the Marceau, and I think he did just get spotted, confirming my suspicions, because somebody was shooting at him there, but with the presence, given that the Marceau basically has no health left, and there is still an Annapolis lurking around Alpha, he's unlikely to go sniffing around trying to get it back. And the team are heading mob-handed over to Bravo. Oh, there's the Marceau. Well, there's a very suspicious looking smoke screen over there. The Marceau's gone down. They've now managed to equalise the kills. They're finally ahead on points. Oh, and there's the gearing, briefly radared by the Moskva, but that's not the gearing shooting from the smoke screen. It's the Venezia. He's now either radared, or he's just too close to the Moskva to be able to fire his big-ass guns without getting spotted. So, time for the Moskva to go to work. Although the Venezia isn't nothing. Now, remember how I said, unlike the Daring upon which the ship is based, the Vampire doesn't really have any get-out-of-jail-free cards. You make a mistake in the Vampire, and, yeah, it can hurt. I mean, you saw what happened when he got radared very, very briefly by the Des Moines earlier. Basically, all of his health is gone. Good news, the team now have all three of the cap circles. Bad news, the Moskva over there is getting absolutely hammered, and it looks like the main's taking a torpedo or two as well. Speaking of torpedoes, the gearing was actually last seen after, well, presumably, I mean, it wasn't necessarily the gearing who laid that smoke screen. That could have been the Venezia's high-speed smoke, but he was last seen bugging out away from the Venezia and heading in this direction. Hang on a second, there's another smoke screen over there, and there's some shots coming out of it, so that's the gearing. Okay. Because you really don't want to go roving around the side of the island on this much health and running into a destroyer like the gearing. That would be very, very bad. Oh, bugger. Well, this fight could go either way. I mean, they're both destroyers with very high gun damage per minute. They're both on very low health. The thing is, the gearing has something that Vanjie doesn't in this particular position. It's got backup. Hey, at least he made sure the gearing went down. And they have 3 caps and they're up to 903, and then the Moskva goes down. Okay, back down to 852 points, 858. But they do have 3 cap circles. Okay, they're 1 kill behind. The Piemonte here has a nice, beautiful broadside Condor to shoot at. Please tell me you have loaded armor piercing. I mean, I know Yosemite armor. No, he hasn't. Oh, great. Still, back up to 903 points again. And he's angled well. The Condor's getting a lot of ricochets off him. He's got the heal going, but the Condor does have the health advantage. And it's good to see that he's not being tempted to swing his arse out to get those rear guns fired and expose the same kind of broadside that the Condor is now doing. So, I mean, he's getting some decent hits, but clearly no citadels here. Despite the Condor's health advantage, the Piemonte really should have won this fight. I mean, look at the broadside that the Condor is giving to him, but the Condor is looking at the scores at the top of the screen. Vanjie's team are on 972 points. He needs to get a kill, so he's risking everything to get the rear turret firing. And if the Piemonte, who's doing nothing wrong, had managed to get a single citadel against this broadside cruiser, there's no way this should have worked. But at 999 points, against all sense of justice, the Conde pulls it off and actually takes down the Piemonte in a fight that the Conde absolutely 100% should have lost. So Vanjie's team were at exactly 999 points when the Piemonte went down. And honestly, it wasn't the Piemonte's fault. He wasn't doing anything wrong. The main, however, with his team on 981 points, has just decided to sail into a crossfire. Well, he hasn't just decided to sail into a crossfire, but he's in one. He has a triple fire burning, although one of them's just gone out. He's got the heal going, but with his team on 999 points. Again, twice in one match, 1 point away from winning. The enemy team clutch another kill, which the main did kind of hand to them. Although, to be somewhat fair to the main, he was probably taken as much by surprise at the Piemonte's dying as I was, and didn't anticipate being the second last ship left alive on the team in the middle of a crossfire when he sailed in there just to farm a few more points before the team reached 1001. Yes, and now that means that the Annapolis, with no cap circles, stuck at 945 points, needs to get a kill in order for the team to win. And he can do it. I mean, it's by no means guaranteed, but he can kill the Satsuma. And he really does need to kill the Satsuma before the 3 surviving enemy ships make their way over here after flipping the remaining caps. And he's not going to do that by sailing away from the Satsuma. I mean, like I said, it's by no means guaranteed. He could charge in towards the Satsuma could get lucky and just obliterate him with multiple citadels from its absolutely massive guns, but it also might not. And those massive guns are in very, very slow turning turrets. And the Annapolis is a fast and agile cruiser with lots and lots and lots of very rapid firing 8-inch guns. But killing the Satsuma isn't going to happen if he keeps hiding from it and sailing towards the Venezia that's going to be heading in this direction after flipping that cap down to the south. I mean, it was always going to be a tough fight, but hiding from the Satsuma and opening the range on the Satsuma so that you're now far enough away that the Satsuma has absolutely no problems whatsoever tracking you with its massive 20-inch gun turrets, while sailing towards the Venezia and the rest of the enemy team, who are no doubt heading this way, because after flipping all of the other caps, they've got nothing better to do, and with more than 5 minutes remaining, they've got all the time in the world to do it. The Annapolis has just switched to the high explosive. He's trying to get some fires. He is at least manoeuvring and managing to successfully avoid any further citadels from the Satsuma. Unfortunately, He really, really needed to have killed the Satsuma by now, which would have won the match, and because he sailed away from him, instead of charging him, he's now getting farmed by the rest of the enemy team. There's a brief pause here. I mean, there's still some incoming fire, and he's still sending some return fire out, but he's actually now managed to get solid line of sight blocking cover between himself and all 4 remaining enemy ships. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because the enemy team now have all 3 of the cap circles. And since he was not able to kill the Satsuma, that means despite reaching 999 points twice, Vanji's team lose. And on that bombshell, that's it for this episode of A Game of Throws. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.